I thought my sister loved me, but it turns out she just saw me as a walking, talking ATM with a tech degree. Let's get one thing straight. I love my sister, Rebecca. Or at least, I thought I did until she decided that my bank account was public property. I've spent the last 6 years pulling 80-hour weeks, surviving on caffeine and sheer willpower to build my tech consulting firm from a garage startup into something successful. I missed birthdays, I missed vacations, and I sacrificed everything to get here. Apparently, in Rebecca's mind, my success isn't a result of hard work, it's a communal family resource. The drama started 3 months ago at a small downtown cafe. Rebecca had asked to meet for wedding planning updates. She was marrying her fiancé, Leo, and I was genuinely happy for her. But the second we sat down, she didn't show me flower arrangements or dress swatches. She pushed a folder across the table toward me. "The Ashford Estate," she said, her eyes gleaming with a weird, predatory intensity. "It's the only venue that fits my vision. But the deposit and the final booking fee come out to $25,000. And with the catering, we're looking at $50,000 total." I blinked, taking a sip of my latte. "That's a beautiful venue, Becca. I hope you guys have been saving up." The smile dropped off her face instantly. "We haven't. You have. Sheila, you're a tech mogul now. It's your responsibility to put family first. I'm your only sister, and this is my one special day. You can't seriously expect me to get married in some community center while you're sitting on a mountain of cash." I was stunned. I told her as gently as I could that while I'd love to help with a gift, I wasn't financing a $50,000 dream that I had no part in planning. I told her about my overhead, my employees, and the brutal hours I put in. She didn't care. She didn't even blink. She just stood up, threw her napkin into her expensive salad, and looked at me like I was something she'd stepped in on the sidewalk. "You're selfish, Sheila," she spat. "You've forgotten where you came from. But don't worry. I'll make sure you remember." She stormed out, leaving me with the bill and a very bad feeling in my gut. I thought that was the end of it, just a sisterly tantrum. I had no idea she was already planning to turn my life into a legal nightmare. For 3 weeks, the silence was deafening. No texts, no calls, not even a passive-aggressive Instagram story featuring a "family is everything" quote. I tried to reach out, but my calls went straight to voicemail. I felt a mix of guilt and anger. Mostly guilt, because that's what sisters do, right? They make you feel like the villain for having your life together. Then, on a Tuesday night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Rebecca. "Sheila, I've been doing a lot of soul-searching. I was out of line at the cafe. I let the wedding stress get to me and I took it out on you. Can we please grab dinner this Friday? Just the 2 of us? I want to clear the air. My treat. 7 p.m. at Da Vindi's on Merchant Street. Please say yes." My heart actually soared. I was so relieved that I didn't even stop to wonder why she chose Da Vindi's, an upscale Italian place that usually requires reservations a month in advance and has private dining rooms for discreet business meetings. I showed the text to James. Now, here's the thing. James and I have been secretly married for 7 months. We eloped at a courthouse because we both hate drama, ironic I know, and we wanted to wait until my firm's acquisition was finalized before throwing a big party. James isn't just my husband. He's a high-powered contract attorney who breathes fine print for breakfast. He looked at the text and frowned. Da Vindi's? On a Friday night? And she's paying? She says she's sorry, James. She's my sister, I argued, trying to convince myself more than him. Sheila, she was screaming at you for 50 grand 20 days ago, James said, his lawyer brain clearly ticking. People don't go from "you're a selfish monster" to "let me buy you expensive pasta" that fast without a motive. You're just being cynical, I told him. It's a reconciliation dinner. What's the worst that could happen? She asks for a smaller loan. James didn't look convinced. He just stared at the screen, his thumb tracing the name of the restaurant. I don't like it. Merchant Street is where the big law firms are. It's too convenient for someone who isn't there to eat. I laughed it off. I really did. I thought he was just being the overprotective husband. I had no idea that while I was picking out an outfit to reconcile with my sister, she was currently sitting in a boardroom, coaching her team on how to take me down. The rest of the week was a blur of work, but I couldn't shake James's skepticism. He has this lawyer intuition that's usually right about 99% of the time, and it was starting to get under my skin. Still, I wanted to believe in my sister. I wanted to believe that blood was thicker than a $50,000 catering bill. Then, Thursday night happened. My younger brother, Marcus, called me. Marcus is the chill one in the family, usually caught between Rebecca's high-maintenance energy and my workaholic tendencies. He sounded different, nervous. "Hey, Sheila," he started, his voice barely a whisper. "Are you still going to that dinner with Becca tomorrow?" "Yeah, we're finally going to talk it out." "Why? Did she say something?" There was a long pause. I could hear him pacing on the other end. "Look, I wasn't supposed to hear this. I was at her place helping Leo move some boxes, and Becca was in the other room on speakerphone. She was laughing, Sheila. She was talking to her bridesmaids about teaching you a lesson and how you were finally going to pay your dues." My stomach did a slow, sickening flip. "What does that mean, Marcus?" "Pay my dues? I don't know exactly," he muttered. "But she mentioned something about legal leverage and locking you in." She sounded proud of herself, like she'd caught a prize fish. "Just be careful, okay? Something isn't right." When I hung up, I felt cold. The "I'm sorry" text now felt like bait in a trap. I walked into the living room where James was reading a brief. I told him everything Marcus said. James didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't even look surprised. He just closed his laptop, his face going into that terrifyingly calm courtroom mode I'd seen a few times before. "Okay," James said quietly. "If she wants to play legal theater at a dinner table, let's give her a show. But Sheila, you have to play along. Go to the dinner. Wear something nice. Act like the supportive sister. Don't let her know you suspect a thing." "And what are you going to do?" I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I'm going to do some digging into who she's been talking to," James replied, already reaching for his phone. "And tomorrow night, I'm going to have a business dinner at Davindy's too. In the table right behind yours." The betrayal was starting to feel real. My own sister wasn't looking for an apology. She was looking for a settlement. Friday night arrived, and I felt like I was walking to my own execution. I dressed up, silk blouse, tailored slacks, the successful CEO look, partly to show Rebecca I wasn't intimidated, and partly because James told me to look impeccable. I pulled up to Davindy's on Merchant Street. The valet took my car, and I stepped into the foyer. The air smelled like expensive truffle oil and old money. The hostess smiled at me, a look that felt almost pitying. "Table for Rebecca?" I asked, my voice slightly shaky. Yes. The private terrace room. Follow me, please." Private terrace room. For a reconciliation dinner between two sisters? My internal alarms weren't just ringing. They were screaming. The hostess opened the heavy oak doors, and my heart didn't just sink, it plummeted through the floorboards. Rebecca was there, all right. She was sitting at the head of a long, white-clothed table, sipping a glass of Pinot Grigio. But she wasn't alone. Flanking her were three men I'd never seen before. They weren't family. They weren't friends. They were wearing sharp, charcoal-gray suits, and they all had identical leather briefcases perched on the floor beside them. They looked less like dinner guests and more like a firing squad. "Sheila, you made it," Rebecca chirped, her voice hitting a pitch of fake cheerfulness that made my skin crawl. "I'd like you to meet some friends of mine. This is Mr. Harrison, Mr. Chen, and Mr. Rodriguez." The three men stood up in unison. They didn't offer smiles. They offered professional nods. "Friends?" I asked, staying by the door. "Rebecca, I thought this was just us." "Who are these people?" "Oh, don't be like that," she said, her tone shifting instantly. The mask of the grieving sister was gone, replaced by something cold and calculating. "They're my legal consultants. Since you're such a busy businesswoman, I thought we should handle our family matters with the professional oversight they deserve." Mr. Harrison, the oldest and grayest of the bunch, slid a thick manila folder toward the empty chair meant for me. "Please have a seat, Miss Sheila," he said, his voice like gravel. "We have a lot to discuss regarding your outstanding obligations to the Ashford Estate wedding contract." I looked at the folder. Then I looked at my sister, who was smugly taking another sip of her wine. I wasn't at a dinner. I was at a deposition. I sat down, not because I wanted to, but because my legs felt like they were made of jelly. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Mr. Harrison didn't waste a second. He flipped open the manila folder with the practiced flair of a man who enjoys ruining people's weekends. "Ms. Sheila, my client, your sister, has been placed in a precarious financial position due to certain verbal and written affirmations you made," Harrison began, his voice devoid of any warmth. "What affirmations?" I snapped, my voice finally finding some steel. "I told her no at the cafe. It was a very clear, very loud no." Rebecca let out a theatrical sigh, leaning back in her chair. "Oh, Sheila, don't be revisionist. It's so unbecoming. You know what you said." Mr. Rodriguez, the youngest of the three, slid a series of laminated printouts across the table. They were screenshots of our text messages from months ago. My heart sank as I saw the highlighted sections. "Me, don't worry, Becca. I'll help make your day special." "Me, I want you to have the wedding you've always dreamed of." "Me, I've got the budget handled for the big stuff this year, so focus on your dress." "These," Harrison said, tapping the paper with a gold fountain pen, "constitute a clear intent to provide financial backing. Based on these promises, my client moved forward with non-refundable deposits at the Ashford estate. Under the doctrine of promissory estoppel, you have created a legally binding reliance. You led her to believe the funds were coming. She acted on that belief to her detriment, and now you're trying to pull the rug out." "That's insane," I whispered. "The big stuff I mentioned was my company's tax software upgrade. And making her day special meant I was going to buy her a nice veil or pay for the photographer." "The court won't see it that way," Mr. Chen chimed in, his eyes cold behind his spectacles. "You are a high-net-worth individual. She is a bride-to-be who relied on your word. We've prepared a formal promissory note and a settlement agreement. You sign tonight, agreeing to a $25,000 immediate transfer and a scheduled payment plan for the remaining $25,000, or we file a civil suit in the morning." Rebecca leaned forward, her face inches from mine. "Think of the PR, Sheila. Tech CEO sued by own sister for ruining wedding. Is that really the headline you want when you're trying to sell your company?" She wasn't just asking for a gift anymore. She was holding my reputation hostage. She had hired 3 sharks to corner me in a restaurant, banking on the fact that I'd be too embarrassed and overwhelmed to fight back. I looked at the pen they placed in front of me. It felt like a weapon. My hand was shaking, and for a second I actually thought about signing just to make the nightmare stop. I reached for the pen. My fingers were cold, and the fluorescent light of the private room seemed to catch the expensive gold plating of the barrel. Rebecca's eyes were tracked onto my hand like a hawk. She was actually smiling, a tiny, triumphant smirk that told me she'd already spent the money in her head. "Just sign it, Sheila," she whispered, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Let's just get this over with so we can finally enjoy our appetizers. I hear the calamari here is to die for." The sharks, Harrison, Chen, and Rodriguez, all leaned in. They were literally salivating at the prospect of an easy win. Suddenly, the heavy oak door didn't just open, it hit the wall with a resounding thud. Every head in the room snapped toward the entrance. Standing there, looking impeccably calm in a midnight blue suit that probably cost more than Rebecca's engagement ring, was James. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the three men in gray suits with the practiced disdain of a lion looking at a pack of stray cats. "I'm sorry," Mr. Harrison barked, standing up. "This is a private legal consultation." "You're in the wrong room, sir." James didn't move. He pulled a chair from a nearby stack, swung it around, and sat down backward at the foot of our table. He looked at the promissory note sitting in front of me, then looked at Harrison. "Actually," James said, his voice smooth and terrifyingly low, "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm Sheila's husband. And as of about 30 seconds ago, I'm also her lead counsel." The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the thick carpet. Rebecca's jaw didn't just drop, it practically hit the table. "Husband?" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "Sheila, what is he talking about? You're not married." "7 months, Becca," I said, finally finding my voice as I slid the pen away from the paper. "We eloped." We were going to tell you when the drama died down, but it looks like the drama just moved into a private dining room at Davindi's. James leaned forward, resting his chin on his hands. He looked at Mr. Harrison's name tag and then at the folder. "Mr. Harrison, from Miller and Associates, right? I've read your briefs. They're adequate. But before you let your client commit a felony over some sea base and pasta, we should probably talk about the evidence you think you have." The three lawyers looked at each other. The predatory confidence they had 5 minutes ago was evaporating faster than the steam off the breadbasket. James didn't even look at the menu. He picked up the evidence folder like it was a piece of trash he'd found on the sidewalk. He flipped through the laminated screenshots with a bored expression that I knew was his most dangerous look. "Promissory estoppel?" James chuckled, the sound sending a literal shiver down Mr. Harrison's spine. "That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them." He tossed the folder back onto the table. It slid across the white linen and stopped right in front of Mr. Chen. "Section 90 of the Restatement, Second of Contracts," James began, his voice dropping into that rhythmic, authoritative courtroom bass. "To prove estoppel, you need a clear and unambiguous promise. 'I'll help make your day special' is a social pleasantry, not a financial guarantee. 'I want you to have the wedding of your dreams' is an expression of sisterly affection. None of these constitute a binding offer to pay $50,000 to a third-party venue." "Now, let's talk about reliance," James continued, leaning into the light. "Your client, Rebecca, claims she booked the Ashford estate based on these texts. But here's the problem. I've already seen the timestamps on the venue's portal. She put down the initial hold deposit 2 days before Sheila ever sent that first text." Rebecca's face went from pale to a ghostly shade of green. She looked at her lawyers, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. "Wait, is that true?" Mr. Rodriguez whispered, looking at Rebecca. "It doesn't matter," Rebecca shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. "She's rich. She can afford it. She told me she had the budget handled." "For her company's Q4 server migration, Rebecca," I said, finally feeling the adrenaline kick in. "I was talking about my business. You knew that. You just chose to hear what you wanted to hear." James held up a finger, silencing the room. But here's the real kicker, gentlemen. Before you file that frivolous lawsuit in the morning, you might want to consider the fact that your client didn't just misinterpret texts. She actively conspired to manufacture a legal crisis. He pulled a small stack of papers from his own jacket pocket. I have sworn statements and message logs from a Miss Stephanie Miller. Does that name ring a bell, Rebecca? Rebecca froze. Stephanie was her maid of honor. Or she was until 5 minutes ago. The name Stephanie hung in the air like a localized thunderstorm. Rebecca's face didn't just go pale, it went a sickly, translucent gray. Stephanie had been her best friend since kindergarten. They were supposed to be the power duo of the wedding season. Stephanie, Rebecca stammered, her voice thin and reedy. What does Stephanie have to do with this? She's my maid of honor. Correction, James said, sliding a printed chat log across the table toward Mr. Harrison. She was your maid of honor. Until she realized you were planning to commit what looks an awful lot like civil extortion and decided she didn't want to be a co-defendant. I leaned over to look at the pages. My heart hammered. There they were, dozens of messages in a group chat I wasn't part of. Rebecca, Sheila said no. The literal nerve of that woman. She's sitting on millions and won't give me $50K? Fine. I'm going to book the Ashford anyway. Stephanie, wait, Becca, if you can't pay the deposit, they'll sue you. You don't have that kind of money. Rebecca, I don't need it. I'm going to bait her into some supportive texts, then I'm hiring those sharks from my dad's old firm. We're going to corner her at dinner and make her think she's legally trapped. She's a softie for family. She'll sign the papers just to stop the crying. Once she signs that promissory note, she's legally ours. The room went deathly silent. Mr. Harrison looked like he'd just swallowed a lemon. Mr. Rodriguez actually pushed his chair back a few inches, physically distancing himself from Rebecca. This, James said, tapping the bait message with his finger, shows scienter. It shows malicious intent. It proves that there was no good faith reliance on my wife's words. It was a premeditated setup to coerce a signature under duress. James turned his gaze to the three lawyers. His eyes were like chips of ice. Gentlemen, you're currently representing a client who just admitted in writing that she intended to use your firm to facilitate a shakedown. If you file that suit tomorrow, I won't just move for a dismissal. I will file for Rule 11 sanctions for a frivolous filing. I'll sue your firm for malicious prosecution, and I'll be billing my time at $600 an hour. He checked his watch. Oh, and since I've been sitting here for 15 minutes? You already owe me $150. Mr. Harrison stood up so fast his chair almost tipped over. He didn't look at Rebecca. He didn't look at the folder. He just looked at his partners. We're leaving, Harrison barked. Wait, Rebecca screamed, grabbing his sleeve. You can't leave. I paid you a retainer. You said she had to pay. The retainer doesn't cover being disbarred for your little theater project, Rebecca, Harrison snapped, ripping his arm away. Expect a formal withdrawal of representation in your inbox by midnight. Do not call our office again. In less than 60 seconds, the three sharks had fled the room, leaving their half-empty wine glasses and a very stunned, very alone bride-to-be. The heavy oak doors clicked shut behind the lawyers, and the silence that rushed back into the room was deafening. It wasn't the peaceful kind of silence. It was the kind that feels like the air before a tornado hits. Rebecca sat there, staring at the empty chairs where her sharks had been just moments ago. Her reflection in the polished mahogany table looked distorted, her expensive blowout starting to fray at the edges. She looked like a child who had just realized the floor was actually lava. You ruined it, she whispered, her voice trembling. You ruined everything, Sheila. I ruined it? I asked, my voice rising in disbelief. Becca, you brought 3 lawyers to a reconciliation dinner to shake me down for $50,000. You tried to trap me into a legal contract over appetizers. Because you have it, she screamed, suddenly standing up and slamming her hands on the table. The silverware rattled, and a half-full water glass tipped over, soaking the promissory note James had just dismantled. You have the money, Sheila. You live in that penthouse, you drive that car, you have the perfect husband who's apparently some legal genius, and what do I have? I have a budget wedding in a rented hall if you don't help me. I deserve to have one night where I'm the one everyone looks at. At my expense? I countered. Literally. It's not at your expense if you can afford it, she shot back, her logic warping into something unrecognizable. It's a tax write-off for you. It's pocket change. But to me, it's the difference between being a somebody on Instagram or being the sister who had the sad wedding. Everyone is watching me, Sheila. Everyone expects the sister of the tech queen to have a royal wedding. If I don't give them that, I look like a failure. You make me look like a failure just by existing. James leaned back, crossing his arms. He didn't say a word. He just watched her with that calm, clinical detachment that usually makes people even angrier. This was never about the Ashford estate, was it? I asked, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. This was about you wanting to take me down a peg. You wanted to prove you could force me to do something. I wanted what was fair, she wailed, tears finally starting to track through her expensive foundation. Family is supposed to share. But you're just a cold, calculating machine. You and your contracts and your overtime. You don't know what it's like to actually want something beautiful. She grabbed her designer purse, the one I'd bought her for her birthday last year, and shoved her chair back so hard it scuffed the floor. Enjoy your secret marriage, Sheila, she spat, her eyes red and wild. I hope you two are very happy together in your tower of money. Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't have a sister anymore. She stormed out of the terrace room, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and absolute devastation in her wake. The doors swung shut, and for the first time in an hour I could breathe. But the air felt heavy. James reached over and took my hand, his thumb rubbing circles over my knuckles. You okay? He asked softly. I don't know, I admitted. I feel like I just watched a version of my sister die. Who even was that person? That, James said, glancing at the wine-stained legal papers, was someone who let social media envy rot their brain. But don't think for a second she's done. People like Rebecca don't go quietly into the night, they go to Facebook. He was right. By the time we got to the parking valet, my phone was vibrating so hard it felt like it was going to explode. The family group chat, the one with my parents, aunts, and cousins, was a war zone. Rebecca, I can't believe I'm even typing this. I went to dinner to try and fix things with Sheila, and she showed up with a secret husband and threatened me with a lawsuit. She's literally trying to ruin my wedding. My own sister is suing me for wanting a nice day. I am devastated. I'm shaking. I don't know who she is anymore. Aunt Martha. Sheila. Is this true? How could you be so cruel? And a secret marriage? What is wrong with you? Mom, Sheila, answer your phone right now. You're breaking your sister's heart. We are supposed to be a family. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. She had omitted the 3 lawyers, the $25,000 loan agreement, and the fact that she was the one who initiated the legal ambush. In her narrative, I was the cold-hearted mogul crushing a poor, innocent bride. I looked at James. She's turning everyone against me. If I don't say something, I'm the villain forever. Don't play her game, James warned. If you post the truth now, it looks like a he said she said drama. Let her spiral. When someone builds a house out of lies, you don't need to kick it down, you just wait for the wind to blow. But the wind was already howling. My mother called 3 times in 10 minutes. When I finally answered, she didn't even say hello. "How much is enough, Sheila?" she sobbed. "You have so much. Why can't you just let her have this one thing? Do you really hate her that much?" "Mom, she brought lawyers to dinner to extort me," I said, my voice cracking. "She had a contract ready for me to sign. She said those were just advisors to help with the paperwork." Mom screamed. "You're the one who brought a secret husband to intimidate her. Your father and I are ashamed. Until you make this right and pay for that venue, don't bother coming home for Sunday dinner." Click. The Instagram wedding hadn't even happened yet, and it was already costing me my entire family. The following Monday, the wind James mentioned started to pick up. But it wasn't blowing in the direction Rebecca expected. I was sitting in my office, trying to focus on a software rollout, when my assistant buzzed me. "Sheila, there's a woman on the line from the Ashford estate. She sounds frantic." I took the call. "This is Sheila." "Ms. Sheila, thank goodness," a woman named Claire said. She sounded like she was one minor inconvenience away from a breakdown. "I'm the events coordinator at Ashford. I'm calling because your sister, Rebecca, told us that you would be the primary billing contact for the $25,000 balance due today. We haven't received the wire transfer." I felt a cold drop of sweat slide down my back. "Claire, I never agreed to that. I'm not the billing contact." "But the lawyers," Claire stammered. "A Mr. Harrison called us last week and said a settlement was being finalized at Davindy's and that the funds would be released by Monday morning. Based on that assurance, we turned away 3 other couples who wanted that date. If we don't have the funds by 5 p.m., the contract is voided, the deposit is forfeited, and there's a $10,000 cancellation penalty." My heart hammered. Rebecca hadn't just tried to trick me. She had used the threat of my signature to keep her lie alive with the venue. She had gambled everything on me folding at that dinner. "I'm sorry, Claire," I said, my voice firm. "But there is no settlement. My sister was acting without my authorization. You'll have to speak with her." The moment I hung up, I knew the nuclear option had been triggered. If Rebecca didn't have $25,000 by 5 p.m., her dream wedding wasn't just canceled. She'd be $10,000 in debt for a party that didn't exist. 10 minutes later, the family group chat went from toxic to radioactive. "Rebecca, Sheila revoked the payment. The venue is canceling the wedding. I'm going to lose my deposit. Mom, Dad, she's literally bankrupting me out of spite. Help me." Then came the messages from my dad. He rarely gets involved, but when he does, it's bad. "Dad, Sheila, I don't care who's right anymore. Your sister is hysterical. She's facing a lawsuit from the estate. If you have the money, you fix this. No, don't make me choose between my daughters." I looked at James, who was leaning in my office doorway. He had heard the whole thing. "It's time," I said, my hand trembling as I reached for my laptop. "She wants to play the victim for the family? Let's show them the script she wrote." I didn't just send a text. I uploaded the PDF of the chat logs with Stephanie and the audio recording James had captured on his phone at the restaurant. I'm not fixing a debt I didn't create. Here is the reconciliation Rebecca planned. Listen to the audio. Read the messages. She didn't want a sister, she wanted a mark. I hit send and watched the little red icons pop up one by one. The silence that followed was the scariest part of all. The group chat didn't explode. It didn't ping with 1,000 OMGs or I'm so sorry s. Instead, it went deathly quiet. I watched the typing bubble appear under my mom's name, then vanish. Then under my aunt's name. Then vanish. It's one thing to hear a sister complain about money. It's another thing entirely to hear her voice on a crisp, digital recording saying, "She's a softie. She'll sign the papers just to stop the crying." The audio was the nail in the coffin. You could hear the clinking of wine glasses at Davindi's, the smugness in Rebecca's tone, and then the sheer, ugly panic when James walked in. You could hear the lawyers, the friends she claimed were just there for paperwork, threatening to sue me before I'd even looked at a menu. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "Marcus, I told you guys something was off. Becca, you actually hired lawyers to ambush her? That's sick. Aunt Martha, I need to sit down. Rebecca, you told us Sheila was the one who brought the lawyers." Then my mom, the woman who had told me she was ashamed of me. "Mom, Rebecca? Is this real? Did you really say those things about your sister?" Rebecca didn't reply in the chat. She did something much more desperate. She called me. Over and over. When I didn't answer, she started leaving voicemails. The first was screaming, calling me a traitor and a snake. The second was sobbing, begging me to delete the files before Leo's family saw them. The third voicemail was the one that broke me. It was just the sound of her crying, really crying, and whispering, "The venue is gone, Sheila. They just sent the cancellation email. I have nothing left. Everyone knows. I have nothing left." James sat on the edge of my desk, looking at my phone. "The Instagram wedding is officially dead," he said quietly. "The question is, what happens to the bride?" I felt a strange hollow sensation in my chest. I had won. I had protected my business, my money, and my reputation. I had vindicated myself in front of my family. But as I listened to my sister fall apart on a recorded message, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a funeral for the childhood we'd shared before Tech Mogul and Ashford Estate became part of our vocabulary. But the drama wasn't over. Because while Rebecca was losing her wedding, Leo, her fiancé, was just finding out that his future wife had tried to commit civil extortion. And Leo was a guy who didn't like theater. The fallout didn't stop with our parents. The real boom happened when Leo, Rebecca's fiancé, finally got wind of the recording. Leo is a decent guy, a high school gym teacher who wears cargo shorts and thinks a fancy night out is the local wings place. He had stayed out of the wedding planning because Rebecca told him it was under control. He had no idea she was trying to shake me down for 50 grand. He thought I had simply offered to help and then backed out. 2 days after the restaurant disaster, Leo showed up at my office. He looked like he hadn't slept in 48 hours. "Sheila," he said, sitting down in the chair across from my desk. "I saw the messages. I heard the audio. James sent it to me." I looked at James, who was standing by the window. He shrugged. "Full transparency, Sheila. He's the one marrying into this. He deserved to know the truth." "I'm so sorry," Leo whispered, burying his face in his hands. "I had no idea she was doing that. I thought the Ashford was because her parents had a secret fund or something. I didn't know she was trying to trap you." "What's going to happen, Leo?" I asked. "The wedding is off," he said. My heart skipped a beat, but then he clarified. "The big wedding. The $50,000 circus. I told her if she wants to marry me, we're doing it at the courthouse. No estate, no sharks in suits, and definitely no Instagram photographers." He looked up, and I saw a mix of shame and resolve. "She's spiraling, Sheila. She's at her parents' house, locked in her old bedroom. She fired her lawyers, but they're still billing her for the consultation. She's hit rock bottom. She's losing her friends, her reputation, and almost lost me." "Is she sorry?" I asked, and I hated how much I wanted the answer to be yes. "She's embarrassed," Leo admitted. I don't know if she's fully sorry yet, but the embarrassment is so huge that it's forcing her to look in the mirror. She admitted to me that she just wanted to be somebody on the wedding blogs. She got addicted to the likes before the event even happened. I realized then that the villain wasn't just my sister, it was the pressure she'd put on herself to perform a life she couldn't afford. It didn't excuse the extortion, but for the first time, I felt a flicker of something that wasn't pure anger. She needs a reality check, I said. And she needs to apologize. Properly. No lawyers, no scripts. She's coming over tonight, Leo said. To your place. To talk. Just her. Please, Sheila. Just hear her out. The knock on my door at 8 p.m. was hesitant. It wasn't the aggressive, demanding pounding I'd expected. When I opened it, I didn't see the main character Rebecca who had glared at me across a $100 plate of pasta. I saw a girl in a stained sweatshirt, eyes puffed red, holding a $300 off-the-rack white dress in a plastic garment bag. She looked small. She looked defeated. "Can I come in?" she whispered. James stayed in the kitchen, giving us space but remaining visible, a silent reminder that the legal shield wasn't going anywhere. Rebecca sat on the edge of my sofa, clutching her knees. "I fired them," she said, her voice cracking. "The lawyers. Not that it matters. They sent me a bill for $4,000 for emergency consultation fees. I had to use my dress deposit to pay them." "Becca." "No, let me say it," she interrupted, a tear sliding down her nose. "I was obsessed, Sheila. I spent every night looking at those wedding influencers, seeing how they made their sisters and bridesmaids pay for everything, and I convinced myself that was just how it worked. I convinced myself you were the bad guy for being successful while I was struggling. I tried to ruin your life to pay for a party. I'm a monster." It was the first real thing she'd said in years. No scripts, no tech mogul labels, no family responsibility guilt trips. Just a sister admitting she'd lost her way in the digital hall of mirrors. "Leo and I are going to the courthouse on Friday," she continued. "Then a barbecue in Mom's backyard. If you don't come, I understand. I wouldn't come if I were you." I looked at James. He walked over, but he wasn't wearing his shark face anymore. He was actually smiling, a little bit of a devious cat that ate the canary smile. "You know, Rebecca," James said, leaning against the doorframe, "I really did have you dead to rights on civil extortion. The theater you put on at Davindi's was enough to get you in some serious legal hot water." Rebecca flinched. "I know. I'm waiting for the papers." "Well," James chuckled, "here's the twist. I was bluffing about half of it." I turned to him, stunned. "What? The Stephanie logs?" "Real. The audio?" "Real," James admitted, winking at me. "But the Rule 11 sanctions and the criminal extortion charges? That was mostly high-level legal theater. I knew those three-piece suit hacks would fold the second they thought their licenses were on the line. I didn't have a countersuit ready. I had a dinner reservation. I just needed to scare them enough to make them run so you and your sister could actually talk without a billable hour attached." Rebecca blinked, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in her throat. You outbluffed my lawyers?" "I'm a contract attorney, Becca," James said, sitting down next to me. "My job is to see the holes in the story. Your story was all holes. But I'm glad you're here. It takes a lot more courage to show up in a sweatshirt than it does to show up with a legal team." The wedding day didn't start with a team of professional makeup artists or a fleet of white limousines. It started with James and me at a local grocery store, loading up the back of his car with crates of soda, bags of charcoal, and way too much potato salad. When we pulled up to my parents' house, the vibe was a world away from the Ashford Estate vision. There were string lights draped haphazardly over the old oak tree in the backyard and a few folding chairs borrowed from the neighbors. Rebecca was in the kitchen, wearing her $300 courthouse dress. It wasn't silk, and it didn't have a 10-foot train, but for the first time in months, she looked like my sister again. The Instagram glow was replaced by something more grounded, a mix of nerves and genuine gratitude. When she saw me, she froze, a bowl of fruit salad in her hands. "You actually came," she whispered. "I promised, didn't I?" I said, walking over to help her. And James brought his legal expertise to the grill. Apparently, he has a very strict contract regarding how long a burger should be flipped. She laughed, a real, unburdened sound. "I'm so sorry, Sheila. For everything. The money, the lawyers, the way I looked at you. I was so busy trying to build a fantasy that I almost destroyed the only real things I had." "The fantasy is expensive, Becca," I told her, giving her a quick squeeze. "Reality is a lot cheaper. And honestly, the food is usually better." The ceremony took about 5 minutes. Marcus stood as the witness, and my parents cried, not because of the venue, but because their family was in the same zip code without a lawsuit pending. Leo looked like the happiest man on earth. He didn't care about the aesthetic. He just cared that the woman he loved had finally come back down to earth. As the sun set and the string lights flickered on, I sat on the porch steps with James, watching the shambles of a wedding. There were no influencers. No photographers shouting directions. Just family eating off paper plates and laughing. So, I nudged James. "Was it all theater at the restaurant?" "Honestly." James took a sip of his drink, watching Leo and Rebecca dance to a song playing from a Bluetooth speaker. "The law is just a set of rules, Sheila. But people, they're driven by stories." Rebecca told herself a story where she was the victim and you were the villain. I just changed the genre on her. "To a thriller?" I teased. "To a reality check," he corrected. "I looked at my phone one last time. I had a notification from Instagram. Rebecca had posted a single photo from the day. No filters, no long captions about dreams coming true. Just a blurry shot of her and Leo laughing with a burger in one hand and a wedding ring on the other. The caption simply read, "Exactly where I need to be." It didn't get 10,000 likes. It didn't trend. But for our family, it was the most viral thing she'd ever posted. The tech queen and the lawyer shark stayed until the last burger was gone, the secret marriage finally out in the open, and the debt of the past finally settled, not with a wire transfer, but with a simple, quiet, "I love you."